So with all of that in mind, now we get to the fun part, the actual live demonstration of all these products. So I will stop sharing my screen here, and then we can take a look at the back here. So I'll start with the Form3 plus itself. What you see here is essentially what you get during installation. The only manual process that you need to do to get it set up is level the legs on the bottom of the printer. There is a tool that comes with the printer to get that done. On the user interface, there would be a very simple circle and then a dot inside of that circle. You want to make sure the dot is in the middle of that circle. Takes 5-10 minutes at most, and then you are good to go. Regarding laser calibration, Z-spindle calibration, everything else that is done on the back end. So when it comes to initial troubleshooting and tinkering, there isn't any of that on the Form3 system, which we're obviously very happy to talk about. For daily printing, you are going to be handling 3 main components. The first is the cartridge itself. So this is a standard 1 liter cartridge. In this case, it is a black V4. With each cartridge, there is a RFID chip on the bottom to tell the printer this is the material that I have. And then there is a bite valve on the bottom that we use to push out material into the tank. This guy is the tank. So this is where all of the resin gets dispensed inside of it. This little catch basin here is where the resin gets dropped from the cartridge. It's in here. There is a mixer that works with some internal magnets to be able to sway back and forth, at various times during that print process, just to make sure the material is nice and loose and ready to be printed. A little bit hard to see, but there is a level sensor on the back here. Very simple. That is there to tell the printer when it needs more material. When it needs more material, that little bite valve will be squeezed, drop into the back here, and then dropped in the tank. And just like the resin cartridge, there is a little communication device in the back to talk to the printer. The tanks, when they first are purchased, they will not be programmed to any material, but once the tank runs one single job with a known material, that tank will then get programmed to that material. Once it's programmed, it will then start an internal clock. So with each material, there is an estimated lifespan of that tank. So for some of our rigids, it may be 600, 800 hours. For others, it could be, a couple years of printing. Once that time threshold is met, once a printer recognizes that this tank has gone on for that long, it will give you a notification to basically say, at this point, your tank lifespan is up. It's not going to prevent you from printing, but it will give you notification of saying, if you see quality loss in these next couple of prints, it may be due to the tank, place it, and then it'll start the internal clock again. Last piece of the puzzle is the build platform 2. You can see the actuation here. Pretty standard. This is quite durable, meant for long-term usage. It's okay if you scrape it up. Honestly, for adhesion to the bed, the more surface area, the little grooves and bumps can honestly be a good thing for it. Sure. The cover here is UV protective. So anytime you are obviously printing or anytime it's just sitting idle, you would keep this closed. When it comes to file uploads and file management, so dashboard is one easy way to manage all the files. If you do not want this on Wi-Fi or Ethernet connection, you can do direct USB upload. There is local storage on the printer itself. So if you need to rerun prints, you can find the queue there and do it that way. Regarding maintenance and general upkeep, 99% of issues that we may see usually stems to a messy printer, whether that's dust getting in the optical sensors or leftover resin getting dropped when you move over parts. If it cures, it is what it is. Very basic. Sanitation is required to get it clean, isopropyl alcohol, or any standard like methanol, alkanox, things like that. Once your printer is installed, ready to go, and you go through the first print, your part will be upside down from how you printed it on preform. Two main considerations when jobs are done. One is that there's leftover resin on your parts, uncured resin, and then two is that they are what's known as the green state. Green state is a solid object. It's not going to fall apart on you, but it's not going to be as strong as what we specify on our technical data sheets. So that is where the two boxes on the right come in. After each print, you can either take your build platform directly, or you can remove the parts from build platform and then drop them into the wash here. The wash is a fairly standard piece when it comes to SOA 3D printing. This wash will use about 2 gallons of isopropyl alcohol and a little agitator on the bottom to take your parts and remove them from any excess resin. There's a little basket you can see in the bottom here, or if you want to take the build platform and push it directly onto the thing here, it is made for it. New IPA will obviously clean better than old IPA. As you wash more and more parts, the ratio between new IPA and resin gets more in favor of obviously the resin. As more resin gets mixed in, we have a saturation level that will basically say, there's a little bit too much resin. Let's siphon out the old IPA and then put in new resin, or new IPA, I'm sorry. There are ways to filter out the resin and things like that. So if you're doing a lot of IPA washing, that could be a valuable solution. For small volumes, small batches, customers would use a waste container and then have a third-party vendor come every month or something and remove the waste material. Once your parts are done and washed and nice and clean, the last step is to go over to the cure that you see here. This will rotate, use a little bit of UV light, extra heat, just to seal on all of the mechanical properties, and again, ensure that all of your parts are going to be as strong as they can be. The wash cycle will take about 15-20 minutes, depending on the geometry. If the age of the IPA is a little bit older, best practice may be to do 2 or 3 wash cycles. Again, just sort of leave that up to how sticky or tacky those parts are removed afterwards. And the cure process will take anywhere from half an hour to maybe an hour, hour and a half, depending on the price. Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention regarding the tank. With each tank, it does come in a UV protected box. So if you are running with multiple materials, instead of cleaning out the tank each time, what we would do is, even with resin still inside of the tank, remove it from the printer and then drop it into the UV protective case here. You can use the labels and things like that. So this way, you're not having to clean it out every time. Your changeovers from one material to the next takes maybe 5 minutes. Remove the tank, put it in the box here, remove the cartridge from the back, and you're good to go. If for whatever reason you have a standard gray tank and then you have a rigid 10K cartridge, the printer does know what's on at any given time. So if you were to try and run a job for either of those materials, it would not let you, just to prevent any weird funky parts from being done. With SOA 3D printing, we will always, or at least in most cases, generate support materials. So those support materials are quite easy to remove in a lot of geometries. However, if you have like internal channels or anything where there's just a large density of supports, what Formlabs has come up with, we basically asked all of our super users, what are some tools, what are some pieces of equipment that you use in a daily basis, and what's beneficial to save time. So we came up with a finishing toolkit, which you can see here, hard to see, but just going through some of the basic pieces. Obviously, you have your Dremels for tougher to reach or harder, more abrasive materials. We have rotary tools. We have, a bit of everything that someone can imagine. Some customers that are completely new to 3D printing, they would get this entire kit. Others, they would take a look at the kit, see what they have, see what they don't have, and basically get what they're missing. Some other things like cleaning pieces. And then I'm sure you guys have all seen the standard flush cutters and little Dremel accessories, as well as your blade here. Okay. Now, last piece before we get to the Q&A. This is the Form Auto. Form 3, as I said, is an accessory to the Form 3. So you don't need to buy both of these at once. Some customers, they'll start with just the Form 3. And then as they decide, I need more production, I need more throughput, then they get this as a separate accessory to basically print more. I am missing the box here, but imagine there is a UV protective box and a little basket underneath. Setup and installation of the Form Auto with our standard SOPs. It's usually 2 people just to get the printer in place, and then about an hour and a half of work. The printer will sit on this Lazy Susan type deal. This allows for the multiple configurations of like where you want to put it in the room. You don't need to use the Form Auto while you are printing. If you want to just do a standard print, we will have the printer its home position, but you can turn off Form Auto anytime, either on the machine or on dashboard with the click of a button. Again, the premise is once your job is done, you have your build platform with parts underneath. This guy in the back here would raise the cover. The gantry arm will come forward, actuate the billet platform like that. It will do it anywhere from, I think, 4 to 6 times, depending on the material and things like that. When it is actuating it, it will close in and create a little catch basin. So the parts will sit there. Once all of the parts are done and is confirmed by the onboard camera, it will then lightly scrape the bottom of the billet platform, not by much, just so that there is no more leftover uncured resin, and that would be removed onto the gantry arm. It pulls out, buckets underneath, it'll separate, and because the box is UV protective, UV sealant, those uncured parts can sit there for, upwards of a week. If you're going to be gone for, a longer period of time, I would recommend having those cured beforehand. Yeah, that's a relatively quick overview of the Form 3 post-processing finishing tools, as well as the Form Auto.